Hello and welcome back to Marvel Puzzle Quest with me, P.I. McLeod, and well, we got a couple things to do today. And I'm going to try to get through it a little quicker because, well, usually, if you noticed, if you catch my streams, I don't do this stuff in the daytime. I have kids and life and responsibilities, but I got a moment. Here. So let's get this done. Let's get this out of the way, but still preserve what I believe is good information, right? Right. Okay. By the way, look at day 3600. A nice blank spot right there. I'm looking at you, devs. I mean, come on. 3,600 days? You couldn't just, throw... I don't know. I know it's an algorithm. I get it. Just meh. Meh. Okay. What I'm doing to start off with, I want to do a Crash the Titans, okay? Because that's a Sunday thing I always do, right? However, I also want to talk about 2018's 5 stars today. So let's get into that first. I'm going to go into the verses, get into one of these notes. I don't care whose, doesn't matter. No qualms against anybody in here. We're going to talk 5 stars, alphabetical order, and Okoye is not first. That's an O. So we're going to wait till we get, I don't know, probably where she belongs before we talk to her. Talk about her, right? Okay, so let's start off with the fact that this set of 5 stars is when the term meta really started to kick in. I mean, we've had metas forever, right? Every team, every game has a meta. It's, you know, the best set of tools, the best technique, the best whatever you're going to use in that game, and MPQ is no different. But meta really, this year shaped a few things, okay? So it's there's going to be definitely a few high notes to point out here. Let's start off at the beginning. C is for Cable. Cable is easily low tier meta, and I'm not saying he's useless, but here, you'll see why. Okay, Cable, I want to like you. I really do. I see where you're going. I get it. But, okay. First off, his blue is a really weird stun. It's a lot of work to get your stun value in here. For 9 blue, you get a countdown out there. And when you make a green match while that's out there, you stun the enemy for 2 turns, creating 5 green charge tiles. It's pretty cool. You get actually good green AP out of it. It's passive stuns once the countdown's out there. It's a neat idea, but the problem is you could have your blue countdown tile somewhere and then the board is dried up for green. This is obviously something you need to use with a teammate like, I don't know, Bruce Banner Hulk, or Immortal Hulk, or I don't know, Totally Awesome Hulk, you know, Cho. Someone to guarantee green tiles are going to be out there. There's probably other options. I just thought of 3 Hulks right off the rip. Sorry if that seems biased. It's unfortunately lackluster because that you put this countdown out there. The countdown is not fortified. It's not safe. Okay, and it can be matched, destroyed, etc., like anything else. And it only takes effect, does its effect when you, the player, make a green match. Once again, there's 7 different colors out there on the board. You're looking just for greens. Yeah, it doesn't give you your full package unless you have it out there and then make a green match. It does sounds kind of, I don't know, like I'm whining almost, but I mean, you spent their 9 blue and you could potentially get nothing. Next up is Plasma Barrage. This is one of the few things he's probably known for. Probably his number 1 thing he's known for. For 12 green, it's a little pricey, you deal a great amount of damage to the target, and if they die, any damage beyond that remaining health is dealt to the allies. You could actually kind of somehow double dip here. So let's just say this 60,000 number you're seeing on the screen right now, right? Let's say that kills somebody, but it only took like 40,000 to kill them, right? So there's 20,000 damage left over. That 20,000 actually spills over and hits both remaining enemies. Not just one of them, both of them. So you kind of get to double dip the remaining damage. Now, of course, this is assuming you have 2 remaining enemies, but you get the point. This is damage best dealt to a low tier person, someone who's low on health. Like, oh, wow, you're down to 1,000 health left. Let me just hit you with this Plasma Barrage. And then the remaining 59,000 damage is going to get hit on both the remaining enemies. Let's see how you best use this one. Unfortunately, it is 12 green, so it's pricey. and it is only best used in such certain situations. Otherwise, yeah, I wouldn't just use it on a high health guy to bring him down, because you're wasting potential damage on a high health dude. So again, it's a cool idea, but you could totally misuse this power very easily. It's only usable or in its best situation in small circumstances. Finally, there's Veteran Instincts, which is actually pretty decent when you break it down, but again, situational stuff, right? So for 9 yellow, you get some strike tiles out there, which is pretty good. That's cool, right? Plus, you get an additional one for every one of Cable's allies that are still up. And then he has a passive built in. When you make a yellow match, you fortify a friendly countdown or repeater. Now that's cool, right? I mean, the problem here is that if you're playing him to fortify friendly tiles, fortify a friendly countdowns or repeaters or whatnot, I mean, need to remind you that 5-star Hawkeye is doing that for free every turn. That 5-star Green Goblin is doing this stuff, actually a little better, every turn. I mean, sure, you kind of get this and the active ability built in together, and that active ability gives you nice strong strikes, but it's just a lot of ask. There's a lot of, like, you have to make that yellow match to make this work. You have to make a green match to get that blue to stun, and that green is really only best served when you hit someone that's low health. It's a lot. Cable is a lot of if, and not for cheap prices either, and that's why he's low tier. Next up, Captain America from Infinity War, or like I like to call him, Lumbercap. I mean, look at that beard. Okay, the Lumbercap. He has a couple really notable skills, and I'll get into the rating in a minute for him. You're gonna have to hear this first. I can't just assign it so willy-nilly for him. I mean, he's Captain America, for crying out loud. Rope-a-dope is pretty fun. For 8 red, which isn't too pricey, you deal a good amount of damage to the non-target enemies. So like the 2 enemies behind the one in front, you deal that to both of them, okay? But, however, if only 1 enemy remains, this becomes coup de grace. Not coup de grace. Come on, get cultured. Coup de grace says, for 10 red, so it's a little more pricey, you deal a lot more damage, and it's obviously only hits 1 person, but you destroy all the friendly colored AP, dealing damage for each AP destroyed. So if there's more than one, but if there's more than 1 enemy remaining, it goes back to rope-a-dope. I don't know how that would really happen. You'd have to have someone like revive themselves, like I-Hulk, or like the Phoenix. Someone would have to come back to life, okay, for that to really happen. But really, at the end of the day, that main power up top, a lot of damage, and then you deal damage for each AP destroyed. You're destroying all your AP. It's all gone. But you do a good amount of damage altogether. This is a giant punch. It's pretty cool. It's a good ability. It's just, it's situational, but I mean, it's actually a really strong power. So it's a positive and a negative, because it has like if this then that, but it's really good in the end. It's an option that's not a bad deal. Next up is Man Without a Country. I put this on level 3. I'm sorry, what's up, Mark? Hey, how's it going, bud? Good to see you. I'm doing pretty good over here. Man Without a Country is pretty cheap, 6 purple. You destroy some enemy AP, 6 if you put up to 5, right? In that tile's color, the color you choose, right? And then it becomes a 5-turn countdown. While it's on the board, enemies may not fire power in that color. That is a nice deal. Like if you see the enemy, let's just say the enemy Cable is out there, right? And he has 12 green, and you're just like, no, I'm gonna fire this Man Without a Country on green. Now he can't use it. Sorry. Now, of course, this means fire. This doesn't mean passives, okay? So don't get too happy. But it's still very versatile. You're destroying enemy AP and guaranteeing for a while that they're not going to fire powers in that. I say guarantee, but keep in mind it's just a countdown tile, so it could be removed. Finally, there's On Your Feet Soldier. This is a very unique ability. I don't know if we could talk about anyone else being able to do this yet. Cap goes on over for 15 yellow and revives a downed ally. That's pretty awesome. most people's revive abilities are reviving on themselves. It's like self-reviving for so much percentage. Maybe there's like an if, and, or but about it. But Cap just says, nope, 15 yellow, you're back up. That's pretty sweet. Unfortunately, this is a useless power unless someone is down and out. That's the problem here. It's not the best ability because of that fact. It needs someone to be down. So, I mean, this is why it takes me a moment to rate him. You have these really cool abilities and options, but they're a little pricey, or there's a requirement, or still overall, because this one's cheap, because this one's so unique, because this one is great at team damage, well, it's quasi-team damage, right? Or single-person killing damage, I gotta actually say he's probably pretty mid-tier. He's not low-tier like Cable, because Cable has a lot of ifs, more ifs than actual, you know, committed ability. Hey, what's up, Weird? I'm sorry, I missed a little bit of text there. Hey, Mark, congrats on the 5-star Bruce Banner. Cool. KBL is a good team to send for those times when a match goes south. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't blame you, Weird Nerd. It's a good team up to send to someone if they get it. That's the whole problem with sending team ups. Like, oh, I hope they get it. I hope they get it. I hope they get it. I always send Silver Surfers because I'm hoping to give someone a black hole. That's so cool when you receive a black hole for someone else, because that's just giving someone the gift of insta-killing someone. But anyways. So for Cap, I'd call him mid-tier. He's definitely not Cable bad, but he's not like, well, you'll see who a top tier is in a minute if you don't know already. Ghost Rider is another, I'd probably say mid-tier right off the rip. He's got some really neat abilities. They're not quite as cool as I'd say 4-star Ghost Riders are, but I think it's because I'm jaded. 4-star Ghost Rider has that really cool black that punishes based on the amount of damage received. This one, not so much. We'll even start down there just to show it off. Damnation for 8 black says, you do a bunch of damage, and if the target has dealt the most damage on the enemy team, you deal more. That's it. That's all it does. It doesn't do like 200% of the enemy's match damage dealt. No, he doesn't do that. He just does a raw amount of damage. It's not bad damage. It's just, it's not as fun as dealing a percentage amount. Maybe I'm wrong for that. Yes, he did. Weird Nerd. Nice memory. Yes, Ghost Rider, Robbie Reyes, got reworked last year. The rework includes a couple things about, you know, the cost of these abilities, how much damage they do. I'm sorry if you hear any background noise. I'm trying to talk over it. So Hellride over here is 9 green. Create a big old countdown tile that destroys enemy or basic tiles surrounding it, dealing damage for each destroyed green, red, and black, and then it recreates itself. And when it does that, these destroyed tiles do not generate the AP, but there is the board shake for it. Don't forget that board shake. That could give you some. The old Hellride didn't do that. It just made a tile that sat still. It destroyed black, red, and greens around it. You got the AP for it, but it sat still. It just kept doing that, and eventually it would find itself falling to the bottom, and it would barely destroy anything anymore. Now, to be quite fair, when the old Hellride tile reached the bottom, the match is probably already over. Matches don't last that long. So to have 9 green, to cast it, to have it fall to the bottom, and then sit there for way too many turns, it's a very rare instance. But the developers noticed it, and they said, hey, let's have it recreate itself. And that way it gets a full set of tiles around it pretty much every tick. Finally, there's Chain Whip. For 7 red, you can stun the enemy for a turn, create an 8-turn fortified red while it's on the board. Oh yeah, and it stuns the person, right? While the tile's on the board, it becomes Judgment Day, and whenever that enemy makes a match, they take damage. In other words, when you use this on someone, you want to use it on someone that's going to be making the matches. Is there an enemy Shang-Chi, enemy Colossus, enemy Karnak, someone that's going to be obviously their tank and making matches? Use it on them. You obviously get the turn of stun on them. They're not going to make a match next turn. However, every turn subsequent to that, they're going to be making matches, right? As long as they're still alive, and hence they're going to punish themselves. Judgment Day, for 7 more red, this removes your Chain Whip tiles and deals damage to the targeted enemy, a good amount of damage. This one is that passive that also states when Chain Whip is out there, they take damage. And basically, it's just to make sure that no matter which version you're looking at, that passive is still there. At the end of the day, he's pretty good. He's mid-tier, but He's just not going to be doing, and I'm talking 2018, right? Let me get my words straight. For 2018, he's mid-tier. He's probably even lower tier than that if you can look at the entire timeline. But for 2018, I'd say he's mid-tier. And even though he sounds better than Captain, than what we've discussed so far, overall, I'm just giving him an overall nice mid-tier rating. He does have functionality. He can put out damage on all the powers. He has a stun factor. You can't overlook a good stun. So just bear with me. You'll see why he's mid, not higher. Why he's mid, not low. I'm sorry, weird. What's that? Chino will never not be associated with Castlevania for me. Nice, weird nerd. That's a good factor. That's a very positive spin on Chain Whip. I like that. Jessica Jones. Oh man, when Jessica Jones came out on MPQ, can I just say how everyone used her? And I'm not saying she broke a meta or anything. It was just more like it was so annoying. Well, let's look at her blue and you'll see why. This is damning evidence. And, I mean, that's the title of it, right? So, at the start of the turn, she creates a red, black, or blue enemy trap tile, and if fewer than 4 exist. When you match one, you get 3 AP in your strongest color, and you deal some damage. At the start of your turn, if you have at least 6 blue AP, you get to see, just real briefly, and I mean briefly, like you have to be looking at the screen, focused in, like, okay, where's it at, where's it at, where's it at? And it'll show you the trap tiles real quick. It doesn't pause and wait for you to note them. You have to be paying attention. So, when it says enemy trap tile, I want you to know that this means that it's on the enemy side. That means you can't see where the little trap tiles are. So when you're making matches, you're just kind of hoping that this is the red, the black, the blue trap that you're looking for out there. This is a passive way of dealing damage and getting free AP. And if just 6 blue AP, you get a lead on where they're at. It's a good ability. And people would use it and abuse it over and over again in the 2018 era because it was just a way to end the match quickly. You could easily match one of these, just trip and stumble upon it, and all of a sudden you already halfway down to somebody. Or less, depending on how much health they had. But you get the point. What was that? Love how she could find dirt on Galactus. I mean, I like how she can find dirt on anyone. She finds dirt on, like, Captain America, and, I don't know, Vision, like, just people that are altruistic, and she's just like, nope, you've got a past. Let me look at your search history, sir. Alright, so the other two aren't so impressive, but they're still good. The red is Defenestrate. For 9 red, deals an okay amount of damage, create 5 random green, yellow, or purple. Notice that those are not the colors that she likes to match. Tiles that are, the strike tiles that are pretty strong. That keeps them away from her wanting to match them. Her traps won't get overwritten by these. That's a big deal. So when she puts her blue traps out there, these tiles won't get overwritten. They won't clash with each other. That was actually a really intelligent thing that they did when they made this character like that. Defenestrate, yeah, it's a good one. And then body check for 11 black, a little pricey, right? You deal a good amount of damage, plus more damage for each color of friendly special tile on the board. Which, once again, she's putting out a yellow, a green, or a purple based on the previous power we went over. So you could do a little bit with this. It's a good ability. Because there's a passive that you could deal damage and gain AP, and it starts right off the rip. Not to mention, at 6 blue, you can start abusing it just by seeing where they're at and making the matches because you want to, just willy-nilly, as long as they're available, of course. She's easier high tier. I wouldn't say high tier, more like low high tier. Does that make sense? But she's above Cap. She's above Ghost Rider. She has passive ways of dealing damage, of gaining AP, and these powers actually work with each other. This one does more damage based on her special tiles. Well, guess what? Red's putting out special tiles. Guess what? Those red special tiles aren't interrupting with these traps. She's a nice, solid character. Oh yeah, Mark, you got it. I like how Mark's thinking. Yeah, pairing her with Arcade or Sinister is not a bad deal, especially since you're getting free traps and you could totally overload the board. And yes, I've totally played 5-Star Arcade and Sinister and Jessica Jones together. And if you get it to work, there's a caveat there. It is fun. So, moving on from Jessica Jones, Miss, probably the first high tier we mentioned here, right? Right, I think it is. We're going to move on to who used to be low tier and who now is, I'd say, high tier. Kingpin. Man, this guy was so bad. He was not that good originally. He had cool ideas. I think the character abilities fit the game and the theme of who Kingpin is, but now they've reworked him recently. He does a lot more match damage, which is a big part of it, but his abilities just scream Kingpin in a better, louder voice. I don't even know where to start. It's a good package altogether. Let's just start with blue, right? This is a nice, strong ability here. Forced Hand for 7 blue, which is pretty cheap, right? You choose a friendly strike, attack, or protect to give to the enemy. So you give it to them. It's full strength and everything. But you take 5 AP in your strongest color from the enemy and deal a bunch of damage minus a set amount of damage per AP drained. So if you're looking at that, yes, if you do drain all 5 AP, you're still going to do damage to them at the end of the day. They don't get away unscarred from this. So you'll still give them the ability, you'll get your 5 AP, and you'll still do some damage. But man, if they have 0, whew, that's a lot of damage. For just for 7 blue, and for giving them a friendly tile, that friendly tile could be 1 strength. Think about that. You can make a really cheap tile and then just smack them upside the head for it. I'm going to move down to black. The harder they fall is for 8 black. You destroy. I'm going to move it up to level 5 so you can see full strength here. Destroy up to 8 AP in the opponent's largest AP pool. So in other words, it doesn't like just based on their strongest. It's based on their largest. So that can flip and switch around. Increases the power of the passive, which we'll get into in just a second, by 5% for each AP destroyed. That passive being him and his allies take 50% less match damage. So you're actually raising that match damage resistance up just by casting this black that's going to destroy some of their AP. It's really good. I mean, that's a great defensive ability. So Shang-Chi and Colossus that hits so much harder, you're just having it. Like, literally not taking half of that damage. That's really cool. Finally, Break Their Will. This is another solid power with him. 9 green. You get a 2-turn repeater that does some damage and creates 3 strength, pretty good strength attack tiles. These are the tiles that he can create to give to someone with his blue. Because it's just an attack tile. You're not going to miss it, right? Plus, he also has a passive that at the start of the fight, for each hero on the team, you get a protect tile. For each villain on the team, you get a strike tile. Yes, he counts. So because he's on your team, you're automatically getting 1 strike tile. So then load it up from there with heroes or villains appropriately for what you want to do. So in other words, if you have like Kingpin and Kitty and Okoye on your team, and I'm saying all these names for a reason, which I'm sure you get by now, Kitty and Okoye are going to add protect tiles to the stage. Kingpin adds a strike tile. And yeah, it's a pretty good time. So you have tiles to start with your blue, or you just wait to fire your green to get some of that stuff off. Plus, you're going to take less match damage, you and your entire team. So he's a solid character now. He used to not be, now he is. So definitely high tier for him. Higher than Jessica Jones, I'd say. And let's move on to, oh boy, Kitty Pryde. This girl broke the game. She came into MPQ and the game lit on fire and scrambled. The game wasn't the same after Kitty Pryde came out. Kitty Pryde made this game almost unbearable for a minute. It was really hard to get around her. She has such a good kit, and at the end of the day, she's just a support character. But it's such good support that, I mean, what else can I say except for just describe what the abilities do? Her yellow, which is kind of the bread and butter of her, but you know, it's not the best. It's not the only good thing about her. Oh boy, For 8 yellow, you get to make some pretty decent projectiles. That's not the point of this yellow. The point is the fact that if there are 4 or more friendly strike attack projectiles on the board, you improve them up to 5 tiles top. So if you have like 20 tiles out there, she's only improving 5 at a time. You improve them by a really good amount. And this is passive. It's at the start of the turn. She's just going to do this every turn. For every member of X-Men on the team, that threshold goes down by 1. So in other words, if you have Professor Xavier with her, that's 1 extra X-Men, right? So now you only need 3 or more tiles out there for her to start buffing them. If you put another X-Men out there, you only need 2 tiles for her to start buffing them. That's a really cool ability. And yes, if you haven't done the math by now, she goes together with Rocket, 4-star Rocket that is, like bread and butter. Add in Polaris, and it's a hootenanny. So she is an amazing character. Just this yellow right here, and we're not done with her. What's that, Mark? You tried running 5-star Kitty with 4-star Nico. It works somewhat. Yeah, you can have double buffing. You could totally do that. If you wanted to run, what? Kitty, Nico, and Rocket just for SNGs, you could totally double buff. Nico is obviously a much lighter buff, but she buffs everything, not just up to 5 tiles. So that could be fun. You would just have to make sure to protect your tiles. If you're doing PvE, use supports that fortify your tiles when you make matches. But yeah, so it's a decent idea. Circuit Breaker's the other reason she's really good. It's just a complete passive. At the start of the turn, if there is an enemy, strike, attack, protect, or countdown. Now I say countdown for level 5. It's level 4 or less, it doesn't include countdowns, okay? It's kind of an important distinction. If there's an enemy, strike, attack, protect, or countdown, being level 5, on the board, you get a 1-turn fortified purple repeater that replaces an enemy, strike, attack, protect, or countdown tile. If there are no more remaining, so basically let's rewind. If there is another one on the board, an enemy tile, it replaces itself over top of that one. It just overwrites that tile. It doesn't destroy it, doesn't match it, nothing like that. It just kind of disappears from one spot, reappears on top of the enemy tile, and it's gone. Simple as that, right? Once there's no more enemy, strike, attack, protect, or countdown tiles, it destroys itself and does a pretty decent amount of damage for being a passive ability. Think to yourself how many enemies out there, or how many characters in this game, make a single countdown tile at the start of their turn. There's plenty of them. Or like 3-star Luke Cage, or 3-star Iron Fist, who makes just a single protect tile or attack tile. And Kitty's just overwriting those things, and then like within a turn or two, punishing the enemy for not having anything else out there. The only way to get around this is to match or destroy the Circuit Breaker tile, but it's just going to come back next turn. So it's a constant threat. The easiest way to keep it at bay is honestly create more tiles than she can keep up with. If you keep her busy, then she can't do anything about it. But obviously you're going to lose some tiles as Circuit Breaker makes it around the board. Finally, there's Practiced Offense. It's a nice ability, but it's situational. 6 red gets you a countdown tile out there, and if her or any of her friends take damage from an enemy power, so they have to fire a power, right? Or it could be a passive effect too. She will create 3 attack tiles, and yes, those will subsequently get buffed at the start of her turn. It's a great ability against certain characters, like Beta Ray Bill, when he fires off his Clash of the Worthy, because that's going to make 3 more attack tiles from you come on out, right? But then your stuff's going to trigger his with his protection. His Clash of the Worthy is going to make a protect tile, right? And then your Circuit Breaker is going to eat it. It becomes like a cyclical thing. It's kind of fun. Anyways, there's a lot of different situations where this works out, and it's kind of fun. But her red is situational. At the end of the day, it's a situational power. It's not the best power in the world. It's just fun. The yellow and purple is where it's at, and those 2 alone is why she's super high tier. She was meta-defining, and she definitely broke the game for a while. The game was, you couldn't do versus fights without seeing Kitty. She was everywhere, and it's still to this day. I don't blame anyone for running Kitty, Polaris, and Rocket and just creaming like their way through the game. Just all the bad guys just go away. They get thrown in a blender, put on high, and they're dead. She's super good. Does she have solutions against her nowadays? Well, of course she does. But, you know, the enemy has to have those solutions. After Kitty, we're going to go to Ellis for Loki. Loki is definitely low tier. It's kind of a shame because I think Loki's a cool character overall. But it just doesn't play as well as you want him to. Here. It's kind of funny because if you look at his kit screams Loki from the early MCU era. So we're talking like Loki that brought the Destroyer down to Earth in the first Thor movie, or Loki from the Avengers. Like, he's got like a cool kit that actually shows that talent. But unfortunately, it's just not enough. It doesn't do enough oomph to get it done. Shadowplay is probably his strongest ability. For 7 purple, he gets 4 4-turn Shadowplay tiles, which are basically countdown tiles that, if they are matched or destroyed, and then by anyone, right? Matched or destroyed by anyone, you get 2 new Shadowplay tiles. The Shadowplay tiles are always black, by the way, so you can't have an infinite amount. Once your black tiles run out, there's no more Shadowplays for you until you get more tiles on the board. Once you have those tiles out there, it becomes Dagger Surprise. Dagger Surprise is super cheap, only 4 purple, right? You remove up to 3 Shadowplay tiles. This doesn't destroy them, it removes them, so yes, it gets around that, and does a great amount of damage for each. I say great, even though that number doesn't look as high as the numbers you've seen. Remember, this only costs 4 purple after you put the tiles out there. But if you do the math, put it all together, it really costs you 11 purple to do this in the end. 7 plus 4 is 11, right? The cool thing is, as long as you can keep the Shadowplay tiles out there, keep matching or destroying them, this will stay 4 purple for the rest of the game. Just keep a Shadowplay tile out there, and it's a really cheap, fun nuke. It's just, the problem is keeping those tiles out there, because once they're all gone, you gotta cast 7 purple again to create the tiles and get your 4 purple nuke back to be available. You want to see Kitty, Okoye, and 5-star Kingpin? It's doable, Mark. The only problem is, remember that she needs 4 or more tiles to start buffing. Kingpin is going to make sure 3 tiles are out there to start. But because she doesn't have another X-Men if she had an X-Men on the team, it would only need 3 tiles. So it doesn't work right off the rip with Kitty, Okoye, and Kingpin. But Kitty could also be there just for her purple and to control the enemy team. Anyways. But yeah, it's not like it wouldn't be bad. His green is unfortunately lackluster. I have tried so hard to build teams around this green, and it just doesn't ever work out the same way I want it to. For 11 green, you get a fortified 3-turn repeater that destroys a random row and deals damage to the enemy team. That's all it does. But that's every 3 turns. You're dealing that damage to the enemy team. And it is fortified. You could have multiple of these out there. I've done it before. I ran it with Vulture and had him keep feeding green to Loki. And I had up to 3 of these repeaters out there before. It was super fun to see just destroyers constantly letting it rip. But it takes 11 green to fire it once. And then it is a fortified repeater. And yes, it can destroy its own row. And so that's where it fails, is that it could actually kill itself. It could actually not even survive long enough to rip off one. It's got problems, especially for 11 green cost. Finally, this Feigned Death. You would think this would be stupendous, but unfortunately it kind of falls a little flat. All it does is when he gets downed, he creates a trap tile that, when it is matched, revives himself with 62, which is a weird number, % health, and generates 3 green. And it can be fired while he's stunned, which that's nice. Problem is, you don't know what that trap is. No one knows. that trap can be missed completely. It could be overwritten. It could be match 4 destroyed away. So he might not ever come back, and it wasn't your fault. You just didn't stumble into the trap. So it's a cool ability in that idea, and it also sucks for the fact that when he does die, right, this trap is out there. It could revive him, but guess what? All your destroyers are gone because he technically died. All your shadow plays are gone because he technically died. So all the AP you put into shadow play and then to destroy everything is gone out the window, and you have to hope to match that trap tile or the enemy to match it so that Loki can come back and then start all over again, making more shadow plays and destroyers. So it's just not a very cohesive package. I have to say, at the end of the day, he is low tier because of that reason. It is a good purple nuke, though. If you want to run the purple, get a purple feeder for him in there, have fun with it. But that's probably his only shining point. Okay, after L, the only next character that goes in order before Wasp is Mrs. High tier herself, Okoye. I'm sorry, was that Mark? If that was the case, as you said, Professor X. Using your CP to hopefully get IO, but not banner. That's completely okay. Yeah. I mean, Professor X is a great 5-star to use with Kitty. They definitely help each other out. But yeah, Okoye and Kitty don't usually mix too well because they're buffing 2 different things, and we'll get into that right now. Okoye came into the scene and again changed the game forever. It is still Okoye's game to this day. There's a lot of good characters in this game. Chasm is amazing. Vulture looks really fun. Omega Red looks awesome. There's a lot of good, strong characters. Okoye is still run to this day as a big damage dealer, and Wakanda Forever is the reason. There's a reason why she's my #1 used character overall, and lets me cruise through this game. Now, I want you to remember, when I look at these powers, they are boosted characters right now. So this isn't how it is all the time. Damage from friendly powers is increased by over 4,000 for each team-up AP you have. Her base team-up match damage is increased by 90% at the start of the turn. If she's not in the front, destroy one friendly team-up. She has to stay in front. She has to tank to be good. But, man, let's just say right this moment I went into a fight. Just boost 2 team-up AP. That means any power I'm firing is already an extra 8,000 damage. Medusa's going to do her entanglement tile. 8,000 damage on top of it. Polaris is going to do that, well, all the Polaris-y things. 8,000 extra. And that's just with 2 team-up AP. Now, to be fair, if she wasn't boosted right now, that number is about like 1,600, 1,700 where I'm at in the game. It's still awesome. It's still amazing. It's not 4,000, okay? I just want to make sure you realize that she's not that... Well, she's a little broken. She ain't that broken normally. But this one ability right here is a good 85% of the reason to use her. The rest of it all comes down to this yellow, Indomitable Spirit. For 7 yellow, you restore a pretty decent amount of health to herself for each team-up tile on the board, then converts 4 random tiles to team-ups. Boy, she makes her own team-up tiles that fuel her black ability. She heals herself. That's just true healing. This isn't burst healing. This is true healing. So she heals herself while she tanks? What? There's a giant reason Okoye is at the top of the list. And these are all big reasons why I like to use her with Gore or Immortal Hulk or Omega Red. You know, people that passively do damage every turn. Crazy. It is super crazy. The only thing Okoye doesn't boost, and the internet still doesn't give us the straightest answer why, is she will not boost 4-star Juggernaut's green, the collateral ability that does team damage upon matches. But that's okay. That's 1 out of how many characters in this game? Nah, we're good without that. Finally, there's Piercing Throw. It's not a bad ability. It's just not her Wakanda Forever or her self-healing ability. Piercing Throw for 11 red. You deal a decent amount of damage and destroy a chosen row, dealing extra damage for each tile that's destroyed in the enemy's strongest color. So if there's like 5 black tiles and the enemy's strongest color is black, just hit that row and bam, that's a ton of damage. So, plus, not to mention, it's good for making cascades and whatnot, or getting rid of a pesky enemy tile that's in your way. You get the point. It's not her best ability by far, but it's not bad. This Wakanda Forever and Indomitable Spirit are the biggest reasons to use her, especially Wakanda Forever, and these are the reasons she's super, 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 super high tier. You will cruise through PvE fights like nothing is in your way. Very few times are you going to change character, say, maybe I'll do, I don't know, Apocalypse. Apocalypse is good. Okoye is better. There's just so much going on with this package, and it's just brute damage. That's all there is to it. Finally, last character, Wasp. So once upon a time, Wasp came out, and it was the lowest tier character they've ever made in 5-star land. Even old school Bruce Banner was pretty bad, but he wasn't Wasp bad. Wasp was pretty bad. But recently, 5-star Wasp got a makeover. She got a few changes, along with Ant-Man and 4-star Wasp. They got a little bit of retweaking of their numbers, and I'm happy to say that Wasp is still low tier. Here we go. Let's go through why. I'm gonna give you the best analysis I can. I'm trying to be non-biased here, but let's just be completely honest. For 6 blue, this is probably the best point of her. For 6 blue, steal 6 random AP. That's pretty cool. Just 6 or 6 stolen, right? That's a nice thing. For each different color stolen, which that could be kind of cool too, right? You could steal different colors, create 1 blue lock swarm tile, and destroy a random enemy strike, attack, or projectile. It's not a bad ability right there off the rip. But you just reading that ability, like, okay, I could work with this, right? That's not bad. Passive. If there are 4 or more swarm tiles on the board, this ability comes Call the Swarm. For 12 blue, so that's a little pricey now, right? Deals some damage. It's okay. It's not 12 blue good. Let's be fair, right? Like, for 12 blue at the 5-star level, you're expecting more. But anyways, you deal some damage to the enemy team. Destroy all your swarm tiles. That's not cool right there. But we're gonna keep reading. And 3 random surrounding tiles, gaining AP from the swarm tiles, and then stunning the enemy team for 1 turn for every 3 destroyed swarm tiles. So this can be good. You could get a nice team stun out of this. Enemy team stun could be 2 turns if you had like 6 swarm tiles out there. It's not likely, but hey, it's a possibility. But you need 12 blue. And then you need these swarm tiles out there for this to work. Once again, ifs, thens, and buts. That's always, well, it's never a good thing. How about that? It's a big detriment when you have these powers for these characters and it only works in certain situations. Her match damage, though, is increased by 10% per swarm tile, and that's only if it's in Call the Swarm mode. If there are 4 or fewer swarm tiles on there, it goes back to being the 6 blue, which is still, I think it's the better version. It's just 6 blue for 6 stealing. It's not bad, and you make some swarm tiles. Pretty decent. Shrink Tactics isn't bad. It's just it's costly for what it does. For 10 yellow, okay, you turn a selected ally invisible for 3 turns. Well, let's pump it up to level 5. Invisible for 4 turns. Get 3 yellow locked swarm tiles. When there are at least 4 swarm tiles on the board, this ability becomes Shrink the Swarm. You getting a theme yet about this whole, like, when there are 4 or more swarm tiles? Anyways, for 5 yellow, when it's Shrink the Swarm, you select 3 of the swarm tiles. I can talk. All the others are removed. Basically, you're selecting which 3 you want to save. You give all the allies that are left alive a burst of health and gain 1 yellow AP for each swarm tile removed. In other words, allowing you to potentially get ready to cast it again later. Of course, but when there are at least 4 swarm tiles on a board, this ability becomes Shrink Tactics, so you go back to this 10 yellow thing. I mean, It's not the worst ability out there, but it is pricey at 10. You can save someone though, like someone maybe you don't want someone to take the next set of damage, just make them invisible. As long as it's not team damage incoming, they'll be safe from it. So I mean there's some utility there. Finally, there's Pain Index. For 10 black, you steal a decent amount of health. Let's be fair. For stealing health, that's a good amount of health steal. And then an additional amount of health per swarm tile on the board. That's pretty nice. And you get 2 black locked swarm tiles. When there's 4 more, becomes Grow the Swarm. We know this by now, right? For 7 black, you create a random locked swarm tile and gain 1 black AP for every 2 swarm tiles on the board. Then you deal damage to the enemy team for each swarm tile on the board. It's a little convoluted, right? It costs 7 black, which is not too pricey. You're getting black AP out of it, which is not bad, so it's feeding itself. But it only works after you have so many swarm tiles on a board, and then it becomes this Grow the Swarm. It's a better ability than what it used to be, okay? Old school 5-star Wasps came out, and all 3 of these abilities were not this good. They didn't make so many swarm tiles. They didn't feed you AP as much. They did the same sort of things. Blue was for stealing, yellow was for invisibility, black was for health stealing, but none of them were that good, and they were pricier than they need to be. Now they're better. They got better numbers all around. Lower costs, higher damage, higher health steal. Good stuff, right? Still situational. Everything I just read to you is situational stuff, except for maybe this blue. I mean, the yellow costs 10 just to make someone invisible, and that doesn't even mean you're going to get a lot out of it. You know, you'd have to make a plan based on this stuff. And when you got people like Okoye and Kitty out there doing these passive amounts of power boosts for nothing, just because they exist, Wasp doesn't look so good anymore. So yeah, Wasp is definitely low tier when you add it all together. I know there's a couple people out there who really love Wasp the character, and I'm sorry, you know who you are, but I'm sorry, she's still low tier. She's not gonna go out there and take out Kingpin anytime soon, or Kitty or Okoye. At least not for the throne here. That's it. That's our 5 stars for 2018 in Marvel Puzzle Quest. Next time we go through one of these types of videos, we'll do the 4 stars and review all these fine lads. There's a bunch of good people in here. Nothing that really screams out crazy amazing, but there are a few notable people that we have to talk about, and some people that got changed for the worse and or better. Anyways, that is that, but I gotta crash the Titans to go through, don't I? So, thank you very much.